in 2021 and moving forward, the market conditions had really changed. Some of our competitors offered trials that some even go live, and buyers, they used to be really happy with analyst reports, customer references, right? This is enterprise B2B software. And now they really want hands-on keyboards. They want that experience. Developers have a lot more power now, and we want to enable that self-education and get them really excited, right? We know that developers and salespeople don't always gel the best, and we need to really get the whole company comfortable, right? From executive, developers, product managers, they all have a say in a platform as broad as Zuora.
Thrivers all around the world, welcome back to ThriveCast. I'm your host, Guru Raj, and if you're a fan of PLG and recurring revenue, today's episode is for you. Our topic for the day is the ongoing PLG journey of Zuora, and we have none other than the head of growth, Dana Yobst. Dana, welcome to ThriveCast.
Thank you.
Before we get started, let me do a quick introduction of Dana. I've met her at the PLG GTM conference, and I looked up her LinkedIn, and her tagline says, Growth Aficionado, or a GTM leader. I think she's underselling it. She's much more than that. Like many of the head of growth people we have seen in the podcast episodes here before, Dana has donned multiple caps. She has been a go-to-market exec, an enterprise EE, a VP sales and marketing. She's also been a co-founder and a CEO of a company. She's been around. I did a quick test in this age of generative AI. I asked ChatGPT to describe Dana Yop, and I gave ChatGPT a prompt to say, just summarize it in 4 bullet points. And it asked me for the LinkedIn post, so I pointed it to the LinkedIn profile of Dana. And this is what it said. And here I quote, this is no embellishment from my side, it's all ChatGPT. The first one, Dana is a trial trailblazer, like the free trials. The trial trailblazer. The second one, she's a metrics maestro. Okay, that sounds appropriate. But the third one, that's funny, a subscription sorcerer. And the last one is she's a Gandalf of recurring revenue. She keeps whispering, you shall not churn, you shall not churn. Every day in the morning, every day before going to bed.
I like it.
So Dana, welcome. How are you? What do you think of the introduction?
I'm doing great. I like it. I like all the adjectives. I might need to update my LinkedIn with some of those.
Cool. Dana, before we get started, could you introduce the audience? What is Zuora and what does Zuora do? What do you do at Zuora?
Sure. Zuora provides a leading monetization suite to build, run, and grow a modern business through a dynamic mix of usage-based models, subscription bundles, everything in between. So from pricing to packaging to billing, payments, and recurring revenue, Zuora's flexible, modular software platform is designed to help companies evolve monetization strategies with customer demand. So we have over 1,000 customers around the world, including BMC Software, Fox, General Motors, the New York Times, and Zoom. And they're all using our combination of technology and expertise and recurring relationships and revenue growth into more revenue, more growth.
I love the tagline, recurring relationships and recurring revenue. That's beautiful. Sorry, I cut you off. Please go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, we've certainly evolved from the early days of subscription only, and recurring relationships now take so many different forms. Usage-based models have really, with the introduction of AI, those have really taken off. So we're seeing a lot of exciting changes in the way both customers see value and companies can really reduce friction and make value equal to investment.
So talking about usage, congratulations on the recent announcement. I heard that Zuora is acquiring Toga. Is that correct?
Yes, we had a press release this week about our intentions, and I'm really excited. We love the way they focus on developers being kind of a PLG, PLS fanatic. They have a great product-led motion. They have an amazing trial. I'm looking forward to learning from them and incorporating everything to make an even stronger platform.
That's super. Well, congratulations again. Dana, I see from the profile, and I think you and I, we talked at the briefing before as well. You joined Zuora around 2021, right? And Zuora at that time was very sales focused. I believe you might have had some kind of a trial, some kind of an early starter self-serve plan. Could you maybe state the affairs, primarily about how was PLG being looked at within the organization, what was functioning? Give us the state of affairs of how Zuora was thinking about PLG at that time.
Sure. And first, I realized I didn't answer kind of what I did there because that
That'll be
informed
great.
the
Yeah.
state of affairs. So I was recruited about 3 years ago to join Zora in a Tiger team, kind of incubating opportunities in new markets. And the unicorn startup space, where kind of a lot of my passion lies, was one of our focus. So we had a charter to break things and learn rapidly. And one of the things we experimented with was a trial experience. We used it primarily to get the technical win and get really a lot of learnings. That has now grown into, I would say, our initial step towards product-led sales of a trial. So the state of the affairs with the trial when I joined, we actually already had a trial. So our product marketing team set something up in 2015, so dating us back. Originally, it was a really important and effective source of lead generation. It helped accelerate deals. We know what happens at a lot of companies. Interests change. There's no longer a program owner. Our vendor contract had expired, and that program was really unmonitored. So there were a lot of kind of mysterious, hard-coded elements, and the validation process was complex. So our users, who are obviously the most important part of our business, were kind of confused. They had some unsuccessful signups. They tried to sign up again and again, and it was definitely not the positive experience that our process. So we recognized the need for change.
So maybe let me scroll back a little bit. So when you joined Zuora, was there a growth team at that time and you joined there as the head of growth, or you were brought in to assemble and have someone own, what was started to refer as a growth team?
So when I was brought on, there was really no concept of growth, and I was working on this other team, right? As that team kind of shifted and changed, and I sort of championed this need for growth. And growth can mean so many things in so many different companies. And for us, it really started with the trial. I championed that and sort of started things off in that way. And team is loose. We're a team of teams without a lot of dedicated resources.
Got it, got it. Okay, I think that's usually matrix organization that gets set up in the beginning. That's super. Could you describe maybe a little bit of continuing on the point of state of affairs? You mentioned there was a trial that was kickstarted by the marketing team. What was trial, and was it a self-serve trial or was it more of a sales-led trial?
Yes. So originally it was designed to be self-serve. There were some in-app experiences built. So Zora's always had a sales element. We are sophisticated with a lot of flexibility, and typically prospects are not ready at this point to really move forward without talking to sales and really getting much deeper into the process. So the intent was really a self-serve kind of check it out, see if you check the right boxes to eventually talk to sales. So self-education aspect. The goals were really similar in a lot of ways to what we have now. It's just the program had kind of become unmonitored. The environment had changed significantly as well. So in 2021 and moving forward, the market conditions had really changed. Some of our competitors offered trials that some even go live, and buyers, they used to be really happy with analyst reports, customer references, right? This is enterprise B2B software. And now they really want hands-on keyboards. They want that experience. Developers have a lot more power now, and we want to enable that self-education and get them really excited, right? We know that developers and salespeople don't always gel the best, and we need to really get the whole company comfortable, right? From executive, developers, product managers, they all have a say in a platform as broad as Zuora.
That makes sense. I mean, the product probably evolved quite a bit as well. You mentioned the environment changed and the competitors were doing it. So were these the reasons why you wanted to go ahead and put some ownership on the whole self-serve trial PLG experiences, or was there any other motive behind you kind of rallying the entire organization to go the PLG? I mean, what were the incentives? What were the motivations for Zuora to look at PLG, or rather relook at PLG, because you had some portions of it earlier?
Yeah, there were a number of goals and benefits, even on the sales-led side. So the traditional sales-led go-to-market, we saw that companies we were engaged in a buying cycle wanted a trial. They wanted tools to the trial. In fact, we had some data where some deals we could have gotten with a trial, we didn't. So we knew even if we changed nothing else, we needed to really enable a trial for the sales and the sales consultants to leverage. That needed to be something they could spin up quickly. So while we're at it, we also wanted to be something available for those interested in self-education and self-service. So it really served two purposes. Some of the requirements are different for those two use cases, but ultimately we want users to get to value quickly, right? To be able to test things like API, create new pricing and packaging, all of the common use cases. And we wanted that to be really intuitive for them. Nothing different than you want in production software, right? But your users, when you're in a trial, they are less invested, I will say, right? They haven't purchased the platform, so they have less time to really learn exactly how things work, and they just want to get to value really quickly. And that's our goal with all of our customers, is get them to value faster. So anything we do for a trial user benefits our production customers as well, because it all has the same goal to get them to value faster.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, you had the motivation, you had all the goals and benefits outlined. Maybe could you share a little thoughts on something existed previously? Why was it difficult to fix that fast? Why would it take so long? Very likely the product has changed, very likely the experiences have changed, but what was so difficult for you to implement self-serve? You and I, we've talked about this, and you had a great presentation at the PLG GTM conference. You had to run lots and lots of experiments to get to the stage that you are in currently. Maybe could you describe the phases and the challenges that you had to implement self-serve, and maybe touch upon some of the experiments that you conducted, along the way?
Sure. First, of course, we did look at the previous trial and can we just iterate that and revive it? And we looked at it, and the tech debt was so much that it was going to take more effort to unravel, wind, figure it all out, fix what needed to be fixed. So we decided to scrap it, start it new. We had some interesting engineering challenges, technical challenges on the provisioning side, on data enablement. So I'll talk about provisioning first. In the Tiger team I started with, we did everything manual, right? We did not have resources yet. We were a very lean team, and we needed to prove the value of this before the company wanted to invest. Provision of a trial with modern data and all the features we wanted was a pretty long process, 2 hours-ish, right? So obviously that does not scale, right? But it's something we could do on our team. We didn't have a lot of tools yet, so we went everyone's favorite way to get things up and running quickly, Google Docs, right? Google Docs, share it, see if people are using it, get feedback. So we weren't afraid to really just lean in and put things out there. We used Slack for support. We didn't have anything built in. So we really just used tools that we had, and the fact that we were speaking with every prospect and user in our small segment. So that gave us really rapid learnings. And probably the biggest unlock to be able to scale was on the provisioning side. So our engineers did some really creative things. and drop that 2 hours into a self-service, couple seconds, less than a minute. So that change really enabled us to roll things out and test more broadly.
Okay, so let me understand this. What you said, maybe I'll summarize it, at least in my head. Your provisioning was about 2 to 3 hours time. When I say provisioning, what did you mean by provisioning? It's the sales guys when they get in front of the customers and the customer said, I want a trial. That's where the request will come to your Tiger team. That's what used to happen. You would go ahead and provision a tenant exclusively for that particular customer with a 2 to 3 hour maybe SLA window where you had to go, run some scripts, get all of the data in, get all of the connections, whatever that might be, the infrastructure hosting and all of the provisioning of the tenant. And then you mentioned about Google Docs. Was that more for an activation standpoint, meaning share something to the end user, here's a doc, please follow this doc to the core for you to be able to activate. Is that right? The tenant provisioning.
The Google Doc was more for guidance. So is your use case to create a product with usage-based pricing? Okay, here's the, 3-4 steps to get you there, because we didn't have the ability to build that guidance yet in the application. And like most sophisticated platforms, right, there's so much you can do. We wanted to give folks a good starting point for each use case. And when those requests came in, which were usually kind of through our own team, there might be special use cases as well, like ramp deals, for example. That's something we can turn on, but you don't necessarily want that confusing folks who don't have that sophisticated need, right? So there's always this line with any product-led experience, which is, how do we flag and let you know all the rich features and flexibility available while giving you a very crisp path to the 80%?
Got it. So if I understand this correctly, your provisioning entailed the following. You would have described what is that 80% need. You would provision that. And then the rest of it, you're going to ask these questions. Hey, if you need something more, some advanced, sophisticated features that you want, please turn this on, and then we will provision that. So essentially, is that right?
Yes, and often we would, in the sales cycle, we would hear, okay, yes, you want to have ramps, or we need mediation. So we'd go ahead and we know what the prospect needs when they get in the trial. So we'd go ahead and set things up. One thing we found pretty effective is we would often record a 2-minute video. Here's how you set up parent-child relationships, right? Because we kept hearing the same questions, and we found that prospects really enjoyed a really quick, focused video showing them how to do something. And that enabled us to scale a little bit because we had only a few people in our team.
Beautiful. So I think when I'm looking at the document that you had shared earlier, the experimentation map, you had to conduct a lot of experiments to get there. So maybe to the audience, could you describe a little bit about, as you were building this Tiger team and you're running this and you optimize that, you did not open this to your marketing website yet. You were only giving these tools to your sales team and the customer who wanted to be onboarded. How did you figure out that's what you need? And that's what the definition of trial is, which is more sales-led rather than entirely user-led or product-led, right? Wherein some unbeknownst user comes to your website, clicks on sign up to Zuora, and then being able to go there. Instead of the self-serve motion, you build a sales-led trial motion. Why did you go take a step in between? Instead of making it completely self-servable, you made it a lot more enabling for the sales team.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say, while there is a branch, there's a lot of similarities. So we certainly do have self-service available on our website for anyone. That's a continually learning process. The sales-led side, I would look at the project as having a number of gates. So prove value annually, then executive buy-in. Now look at experiments that we're all told, right? We're not a new startup, right? We are a public company, so we have a lot of responsibility and we need to control different risks. When we looked at, an early kind of controlled launch. We looked to work with a number of sales reps where we could work very closely with them. We took the risk out of any marketing program, validation, putting it public on your website. There's some inherent risk to that, and we wanted to make sure we had worked out all the kinks. So first, we did a controlled method with sales-led. Then we eked up a little bit, and we have an annual event subscribed live for our customers and analysts and prospects. And so we had a follow-up to that event last year with invitations to join the trial. And as we became more and more comfortable, then we ended up putting it on our website on Zuora.com for self-service. And I would call that more product-led sales. So they're still going to talk to salespeople. Eventually, we'll have that product usage as part of our MQL. We haven't quite gotten there yet, but that should feed in just like all the other signals for prospects.
Okay, that makes sense. And if I have your permission, I'll probably get the experimentation map from you, and we can put that as part of the blog post and the content as well. Super. I think that maybe let's start from that journey that you now had the enterprise trials going on. Sales team were in control. They have deploying it to customers, and you had optimized your tenant creation. The activation process is a lot more optimal now with the trial. You said you data enablement and all of that. What happened after that? How did those trials go? Were you able to realize pains that customers were inadvertently clicking on wrong places that you didn't want them to click? How did your metrics behave at that time? What did you find? What did you learn there?
Yeah, so a lot of the metrics, a lot were providing kind of baseline learnings for the trial because this was new as part of the process. We instrumented a tool that gave us user level metrics as well as the ability to post in the app. And that was something business users didn't have a lot of access to before. We certainly have sophisticated analytics, but this kind of brings it down into what is that person doing and how did they get to aha? So as we started to see folks who were successful, companies that were less successful, we could start to model, okay, we want more of what this company did because they were successful. We see that they created 5 products, they created 3 subscriptions, they ran some bill pays, and we kind of looked, are they clicking on help a lot? Like, are they understanding things? One of the maybe more interesting things I saw was we built a resource center for the trial, built out use cases, videos, instructions, and we thought, wow, this is going to be great, we hope. Although I will say my videos are very rudimentary because I didn't know if users would like them or not. Users aren't real interested in the resource center. They're not looking. They more want to just figure it out on their own. So some of the metrics have been surprising, right, and interesting, because then we know, hey, we don't need to put a lot of more effort into that. We need to shift some effort into bringing the API documentation to a use case level because we have so much documentation and all of it is great, but sometimes it's hard for a new user to know where to go. So let's shift our focus over there. So it does kind of shine a light on areas that people might need a little more help and areas where they're really comfortable and kind of do the same thing over and over.
Okay, I think so. Yeah, so I've captured a couple of learnings. You mentioned about a resource center, which probably was sitting somewhere on outside of your product, and your assumption was that users will go to the resource center, learn, and then come back to the product. And your learning is that something that sits on the outside does not help that much. It does not get lot many clicks. It might need to be a lot more inside of the product.
Sorry to interrupt. Interestingly, this actually is in the product. So it does render in the product, but it still doesn't gain a ton of traction. You know, there's maybe 3 use cases that people tend to look at, and there's a few that people just never even look at. And we realized, okay, those are edge cases. We thought they were really important, but obviously they're not that important for people on a trial. That's important much later down on the roads. So even an experiment that kind of doesn't get the results you expect, as long as you get a learning, it's a successful experiment, right? You've learned something.
Yeah, so I think the assumption that the customers want to use all of the sophisticated features within the product from day one may not necessarily be true. So that's great. So I think you also mentioned about the use case level APIs, and this is very interesting. Certainly, I've heard this many, many times now. Just throwing documentation and APIs in the documentation without guided use cases, saying that for this use case, this is how you should use the API, these are the parameters, these are the samples. If you don't do that, it's very likely they don't get used. Could you tell a little bit about what was your learning of how did you stumble across this particular learning per se that, hey, this is what you need to get use case based APIs within the product or somehow manage that way?
Yeah, this we really burned through a couple sales-led trials. Actually, there's an Australian team where one of our SCs is very active and gives really good feedback. And he's speaking with users day in and day out. And he really shined a light on this. They want the APIs per use case, exactly as you said. They don't want to dig around. You know what they're trying to do, just show them exactly what they need and nothing else.
Okay, sorry, I'm typing.
Yeah,
I'm writing down these things.
And
These are very interesting.
That's certainly a fast path when there's an SC managing that, right? Because they know exactly where everything is. And now we're at the point of scaling that knowledge into the trial, right? We love for a human to be there to help, but if they're not, or if a developer just wants to search on their own, right? How do we get that in front of them and really understand what they're trying to do? So that's where we are now in that part of the journey.
Okay, super. Let me ask this. You mentioned about various use cases. So how did you get these use cases in front of the customer, especially at the time of the trial? Did you have to build a simplified onboarding experience saying that, hey, use case 1, use case 2, use case 3, get started for use case 1 in this particular way, get started for second use case in a completely different way? Did you build some sophistication around the onboarding or that came in much later?
Yeah, I would say we're still working on the scaled side of that. Now, our users are diverse. We have a large amount of software as a service customers, B2B, also PLG. We have media companies like New York Times, right? B2C. They're going to use our product very differently. So we're trying to kind of figure out, and I think where we've landed is first we're going to really focus on SaaS customers and build for the developer, the product manager to start, because we're seeing more and more those are the folks with hands-on keyboards. And as we see usage-based pricing, consumption pricing, mediation really taking off, that's something that we're seeing in a lot of software companies. So finance might say, hey, we need to really start to monetize. We're using AI. Hey, y'all, go figure this out. And for a system to work for a company, it has to go all the way through to invoicing, right? It can't just be something that is engineered in a black box that end customers can't see. So you need to satisfy the finance folks who need everything buttoned up, right? And developers need the power as well to change things. And product managers really just want to implement their dreams, right? And no one to block them. What if we tried this or what if we tried that? So those are some of the top burning use cases we're seeing right now. And that's really been driven, again, by the explosion of AI and those usage-based pricing being folded in.
That makes sense. I'm very likely I'm predicting the future, maybe alongside with the acquisition of Togai that you have had. The number of use cases that Zuora will support, the number of scenarios Zuora will support, and the kind of customers that Zuora supports is going to be a lot more broader than a very specific segment. So these combination of segments and use cases it's going to be just too many for you to be able to manage on a single onboarding. Right? So I'm guessing that's where it will get sophisticated over a period of time.
Yeah, and we used to see software used to be charged by seat or by month, or maybe there
Yeah.
was a usage bid, and maybe the company recorded it or not, and that has just changed. Every startup has very sophisticated pricing, and every size company needs that sophistication, and they need a way to implement it quickly without straining their resources.
Yeah, that's why I think there's a plethora of usage-based pricing startups all around. In my last count, it was about 15 or 16 of them, which were more than a seed, had raised more than a seed round, probably even Series A. So I think that probably tells the story of why it's getting that complex.
Yep.
Let me jump into another question.
Sure.
I know you ran these experiments. Could you share a little bit about the success rates of these experiments? Meaning, how many of these trials completed successfully? Not necessarily, even you don't have to share information that is, not public. But did you feel an advantage of you running these particular experiments? Were you moving the needle? And how did you know that you were moving the needle? I'm guessing purely based on either conversion rates or purely based on your win rates, deal sizes becoming bigger or smaller. How did you know that you were going on the right track?
Yes. So, like any growth person, you have to be married to the metrics. So, I was certainly measuring every trial, whether it's sales led, whether it's product led, and what the results were. And I would say we launched this in our fiscal year 24 around Q2 with kind of the smaller launch. And we started already getting very strong results as far as closed deals, CV. We had one very strong logo that got all the executives in, which was wonderful. The next quarter, we actually closed almost 50% more in ACV. And our close rate of those opportunities involved with a trial versus those who were not was 2x, so double the close rate. So that was obviously very compelling. And that continued to grow at the same pace with the next quarter. So I think the deals we influenced was almost 50% and 70% quarter on quarter. So really strong results in the closing sales. What we are still kind of cracking the code on is the product-led side. The product-led, brand new user, brand new company we've never heard of, leading to an opportunity. That's a piece where we're focused now and I'm really trying to figure out how to solve that.
Okay, that makes sense. Let me bring back, you started talking about making provisioning easier, making use cases, activations more easier. You did by solving your product and engineering team probably did an amazing job in reducing from 2 to 3 hours time to a quick couple of minutes. Very likely because of that, you were able to deploy trials more conveniently, more at ease. But if the trials did not succeed, did you also have automation to deprovision these tenants as easily as you had provisioned them? Or that's something that you're planning to do as part of your self-serve or the public self-serve experiment?
That is a great question and a bit of a pain point right now. While we can automate the deprovisioning, I'm still not comfortable with automation because there may be a prospect out there who, even though they haven't been active for a few weeks, they're still in there and they don't want to lose their work. So right now, there's someone in engineering and myself who do a lot of manual effort. We're working to automate and build some rules into that, but it is definitely a labor of love at this point.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Deprovisioning or deprovision of unactivated accounts always has feel to it. If you deprovision too early, you'll lose the customer. Deprovision it too late, you will incur your hosting costs, and your hosting costs will go through the roof. So there's a fine balance there.
Exactly.
So I think, maybe in the interest of time, could you maybe share a little bit about your future roadmap, right? Now that you've done these experiments, have given enough, you have the executive buy-in, you now have enough trial metrics to share that, hey, this is worth the effort. You're implementing or you're on the journey towards self-serve sign up, make it more publicly available. What next? Where will you take this forward from here?
I think right now we're looking to really expand the trial offering, both in use cases that are supported and enabling all the advanced functionality so that folks can access it without asking. So kind of the concept of the reverse trial where everything is available. And there's some UX thoughts around that, right? How do we enable it all yet reveal complexity and flexibility? So I'd say we're working through that as well as some of the things we talked about, like the use case driven API. So really just making it brain dead easy for anyone who's in the trial to do everything they want and then talk when they're ready, right? If we talk the salespeople and the SEs out of a role until the very end, great. We're all doing our job well, and sales and marketing and product is really collaborating and understands our users very deeply. So that collaboration is also something that's a continual piece of work, right? Particularly in a larger companies. There's a lot of moving parts and continuing to focus on the right users, the right use cases. What do they need beyond just the product, right? It can't be just the trial alone. That won't give them the comfort they need.
Yeah, I think so. Superb. I think that Dana is a very interesting case study exactly because of this. And initially started off as a PLG, as a self-serve product, a tad bit, and then switched more towards or indexed a lot more towards the sales-led motions. And then you resurrected back the PLG of the self-serve motions. Now with so many experiments that you have done and the learnings there are, I'm sure this might be a guiding light for many other PLG companies, or rather many other sales-led companies who want to go the PLG route as well. Any word of advice, someone who's actually going through that particular journey, especially who have been a successful, large company, may not necessarily be a public company. Zuora did many of these things after it went IPO'd, but there might be other larger sales-led companies. What advice do you have for them as they go through this motion of adding PLG as a layer on top of an existing SLG motion?
Yeah, so I would say for B2B companies looking to add the product-led side, product-led sales is probably the easiest route just because they still have the control, the learnings. I would say it helps to have one person who's really wholly focused on this motion, who is getting the learnings firsthand. They need to talk to the users. They need to see what's going on. They need to be a deep friend of the field and understand where the friction points are. And I think from the top down, the business has to be committed to, and we want to support the product as one of our top real estates, right? We want that to be one of our best advertisements. And we need to coordinate with sales. We need to coordinate with marketing. We can't just, for example, throw up a trial and see who comes, right? It really is a coordination. And I think in larger B2B companies, a forcing factor for that is very valuable. It helps everyone focus on the same user and understand, how do they get to our website? How do they use their product? How do we talk to them in sales? It should be the same thing coming from 3 different directions. And the last thing I would say is that you need to embrace experimentation and be willing to put kind of ugliness out there. You can't wait for anything to be perfect. You'll never launch anything. So just be willing to learn, put yourself out there, lean into lean product, right? You already have product market fit, so that's easy. Now you can lean into that side of things.
So that's a good playbook. Start with sales assisted trials. I'm trying to summarize it, try to maybe reduce it a little bit. Start with the sales assisted trials, get the executive buy-ins, start with some experimentation roadmap on how do you want to structure various projects that you want to kickstart and try a couple of things. Your last point about get your product out there, shipping sometimes helps in learning much faster. So keep on shipping even though it might be ugly or it might have been thought of being ugly at the very outset. Customers still prefer value. Ugliness aside, they would know that they will be able to deal with the ugliness as long as you're committed to solve it. So this is a wonderful playbook, Dana. It was great to host you, and congratulations once again for Zuora to go on this particular path. And to all the listeners out there, you can reach out to Zuora for recurring revenue, recurring relationships, and we'll also put in Dana's connects or LinkedIn connects in the post as well. Dana, absolutely a pleasure to host you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.